to thank you, David, on behalf of Pipers'Persuasion for this interview this afternoon, which is the 15th of October, and we are sitting in Portishead in North Somerset.
Correct, yes.
And just everybody's wondering why we're sitting here in North Somerset instead of North Uist or some other place like that in Scotland. Why the choice of Somerset for a retirement?
Yes, well, my daughter married a Gurkha officer who retired to farm in North Wales, and they had 3 sons, and they all went to school in England, and they all worked in London or thereabouts latterly. Well, in due course of time they all got married and they all had children, and we were living at the time at Oxton, just south of Edinburgh, north of Lauder on the A68.
That's a nice spot too.
Yeah, beautiful spot. We were there for 32 years and loved it. But of course it was a tremendous journey for people to come to see us. So we thought it over and decided, rather than have the family bring up tiny little children, we would go down, Muhammad would go to the mountain and all that. So we came down here.
Emigrated.
We emigrated, yes. My wife's an English lady.
Yes.
She comes from Devon, just along the road.
Oh, so she's well kent with the area.
She's well kent with the area, yes.
Yes,
She interprets for me when the local accent gets too heavy. But
So you mentioned Lauder a moment ago.
Yes.
Were you not born or something in that area?
No, I was born in Pakistan. In a place called Murray, funnily enough, which is in the hills just north of Rawalpindi. It was the hill station for the troops in Rawalpindi, and my mother was there, and I was born in 1921, towards the end of I was born 9 months after the end of the 3rd Afghan War. 9 months after the battalion came down from the frontier.
So what battalion was that?
1st Battalion, the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders.
So that was a connection, eh?
That was the connection, yes.
I see, yes.
And I had the honour to serve in that battalion and that regiment for 28 years.
Yes, but that was a while later.
That was a while, yes. I was a bigger boy then.
Yeah.
But I was born on the books from the day I was born. Yeah.
So the connection with the regiment, who was in the regiment when you were born?
My father was a surgeon. My mother's uncle was before him. He fought at the Battle of Tel el-Kebir in 1882. And the connection's gone on since then. I was the 3rd generation to serve in the regiment. That
was a good 6-8 march, was it not?
The Highland Brigade at Tel el-Kebir, yes, that's right. Yes. Good for the Torlos on sea.
And the sea Torlos, yeah. Yes. You never hear that tune now.
No, Robert Reid gave it to me. One of the first.
Fun enough, I heard Robert Reid and his brother playing it occasionally in the old Pipers Club in the Herders Institute at where was it?
Elm Bank Street.
Elm Bank Street, yeah, Elm Bank Street.
Yes.
Aye, and they used to have, and the Reids played there quite a lot at that particular time in the 50s.
Yes, I believe, yes.
I was one of his favourite pibrochs, not in praise of Morag.
Oh yes, he was a great, he was a master at that.
So even as a small boy, I used to go and listen to these tunes, you know.
Yes,
But that's interesting. So how long did you remain in the subcontinent then, if you like, Pakistan?
I came home when I was a baby. My father had spent 11 years out there one way or another, and he was due a turn at home. So we came and went to Inverness, and we lived at the Cameron Barracks in Inverness, and I spent my first 5 years in Cameron Barracks. And then he joined the prison service and became Deputy Governor at Barlinnie.
Yes.
And so I was brought up in criminal surroundings, so to speak.
Between the army and the convicts, yes.
Yes.
Now, where did you stay in Glasgow? I assume you stayed in Glasgow when you was working in Berlin, or did you not?
Yeah, oh, we stayed in the quarters at Berlin, and
Yes,
the Deputy Governor's quarter at Berlin.
So where were you educated?
I all over the place. I started off, by the time I was a junior, we were in Edinburgh. My father was Governor of Scotland.
Okay.
And I went to George Watson's, and then we moved to Glasgow again, and I was at the high school.
Glasgow High School.
Yes.
My brother went there.
Street.
That was a famous school.
Yes.
Yes, aye.
And then I was at in Greenock for a while, and then we came back to Edinburgh, and went back to George Watson's.
That was a bit of a dismal place, Greenock, eh? If it's going to rain anywhere in the world, that's where it rains.
Just like here. Just like here, yes.
Good. And so when, I know it was, you mentioned to me in an email that was some 80 years ago,
Yes.
you first lifted a practice chanter, so you might as well tell us all about that.
Well, it was at school at George Watson's. They had a cadet corps.
Yes.
Which you had to be 14 to join, but you could join the band at 12.
So
I wanted to be a drummer, so I went up and reported to the master who was in charge of the cadet corps and said I wanted to join. And he looked at me and said, would you like to be a piper? In those days, you didn't argue with the master. So I said, yes, sir. And that's how I came to
the piping.
To the piping, yes.
Yeah.
And my first teacher was Jimmy Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
Edinburgh, better known as a dancer than a piper. And he was John Burgess's first teacher too.
Is that right?
And then we moved to Glasgow, and the tutor of the pipe band there was Robert Reid, who was then 40 years of age, at the height of his power. And from Jimmy Gordon was a portly old man with a big tummy and not too energetic, to go to the high school band where was this young get up and go chap.
Okay.
It was a complete eye opener to me. So he brought me on, and then we had to move to Greenock. So
what sort of tunes did you play with them at that time?
we played, the competition set was Major John McLennan, and what the Suspe they call The Rose Among the Heather.
Right.
But Reid called it the Highland Played, and the reel we played was Bogallan, G.S. McLennan's Bogallan. Quite tricky, but we played it. And then we played Pibroch O'Donnell and the March Past was the Cameronians' March Past. We wore the Cameronian uniform. It was Kemio's Up in a War.
Quite a sprightly tune.
Quite a sprightly tune, yes. We played it at the normal speed, we didn't play it at the 140 that the Cameronians did.
Because you were younger, you were allowed.
Yes.
Aye.
And then when we went to Greenock, I hadn't any teaching, but I was quite prepared to play anywhere, as you are when you don't know much. And I was playing at some concert one night, and I saw my father talking to an old man who turned out to be Pipe Major John Ballach, the composer of Och Mountains Bonnie Glen, the 25th Farewell to Merit, and these tunes. And I think he squared my father away and said, you've got to get a hold of this chap. So he sent me back to Robert Reid.
Good.
So back I went to Robert Reid with my pipes, full of confidence, and Robert said, all right, play us the tune. So I played the Atholl Highlanders March to Loch Catron, of which I was very proud. And I put the pipes away, and Reid said, you were playing a lot better than that the last time I heard you. So in we went to the back room, and he produced Logan's famous tutor for the Highland bagpipe, and I thought, I'm going to get a new tune. and he opened it and he turned back, till he came to the scale and he said, "We'll start here."
Start again.
Yes.
Yes.
So we started again.
Uh-huh.
But he was a man that I personally found it easy to respond to.
Yes.
And I was very keen to please him.
Uh-huh.
So by the time the next Saturday came, I had what he told me off, and I made that the principle on which I worked. Whatever he told me one Saturday, I could play the next.
That's excellent.
And I got a lot of encouragement from Tommy, his brother, because Robert Reid
Yes.
was not a man given to
Compliments.
to praise very much. Tommy came in after about 6 weeks and said, "You're making great strides. The pipe major was very pleased with you." So I stuck in. But the only praise I ever got from Robert Reid was when I joined Tommy Reid's band, the Kilmacombe Pipe Band, that we played at Cowell. And Robert said, "Play me the competition set that the band's going to play." So I played, what was it, Their Guys Are Gathering, Dorritor Bridge, and The Rejected Children. And he looked at me and said, "If they all play like that, you shouldn't do too badly." And that's the height of all the praise I ever got for Robert Reid. But if he kept you on, you knew you were doing all right.
Yes.
And of course I had.
So that'd be accolade enough, really.
That was enough. That was enough. Yes. And I revere his memory. He was a true artist.
Mm-hmm.
To hear Robert Reid play the Barren Rocks of Aden would make your heart stop.
What set of pipes was he playing, and what set of pipes did you play at that time?
Oh, he played. I don't know what it was, what they were.
Okay.
At the age of 15, you don't ask these sort of things. But when I used to play at Cowell, for instance, he would give me his pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And on the drones, he had little rubber, the kind that you used to get off lemonade bottles.
The lemonade bottles and the corks, yes.
Yes, the corks, yes.
The seal.
And he'd say, "Play them until the drones come down to the corks.
Yes.
Then stop.
Yeah.
Then when you come to go on, pick them up, strike in, and they'll come in very quickly." And that was it. He had it down to that sort of fine art.
That's great.
Yeah.
These chaps never took long to blow an instrument, and maybe 10 minutes before it went up.
Yeah, no.
Wouldn't be a lot of tuning the platform either.
No, very little, no.
No.
I mean, comparable nowadays.
Yes.
Where you can get 10 minutes. I mean, I think Dougal McNeill has timed the Blair Athol contest, where in fact there was more tuning than there was piping.
I was at Blair Athol once, and one individual took 40 minutes to tune up before the Peabrook. And then when they started the first bar, I knew he wasn't going to get a prize. But that just extends the whole day. It beats me why they've never ever taken to the lights at Glenfiddich, and yet it's introduced in so many other places to great effect. It's just part of the competition. You don't get pipe bands tuning up on the line. They tune up about 300 or 400 yards away and walk up. It take about 5 minutes later they're going and playing the World Championships with 20 odd pipers. So why can't a sole piper do it? You know? That's my rant over. But that's interesting. So when you were playing at Cowell, that would be as a youngster.
Yes.
And did you get much in the way of Peabrook from Robert Reid?
I got 6 tunes by the time we moved back to Edinburgh and I went to Willie Ross.
Yes.
I got the McGregor's Gathering, Captain McDougall, MacLeod of Brassey, The Groat, one other tune, And yes, I can't name them all, but I got 6. I could play 6 by the time I went to Willie Ross.
That's just entirely on cue. I was going to ask you about Willie Ross. When did that occur, that you went to Willie Ross?
Well, my father was promoted back to Saughton Jail in Edinburgh, so we moved back there. And Robert Reid very kindly wrote to Willie and asked him to take me on. And Willie took me on. He didn't interfere with anything that Robert Reid had taught me.
Okay.
He took me on from scratch, and he gave me another 6 Pipers'Persuasion before
Yes.
the war broke out. Big Spree, The King's Hand. I forget that's James O'Donnell of the Isles. That was the first one he gave me. I don't know. I can't remember the others offhand.
So you actually went into the castle and the Willie Ross's quarters and taught there?
Yes, I went up to the flat where he gave his lessons.
I must point out to the viewers here, if they go to the Bruce Hitchens interview, you will see footage of Willie Ross's flat, etc., and the Edinburgh Castle, and get a full description of the piping school there.
Yes,
yeah. But so, how many years or whatever did you manage to get with Willie? Or was it a shorter time than that?
It was pretty short because the war broke out.
Yeah. What age were you then?
I was 17 when the war broke out.
Okay.
But I was 18 a few days later. And I enlisted in October 1939. And then in those days there was no rush for recruits because the army was determined not to make the same mistake they'd made in the First War, which just take thousands of men in. There were no uniforms, no rifles, no instructors, so the whole thing was going to be carefully graduated.
Yeah.
And I was in one phase. But the best laid plans. On May the 10th, Hitler invaded the Low Countries, and we were in.
And that was the Common Highlanders?
No, I joined in the Royal Scots.
Royal Scots?
In those days you had to go through the ranks.
Yes.
So I went to, I joined the Royal Scots. And then I was transferred to the Black Watch, and then I went off to, became an officer in the Commons in early 1941.
So 2 years later?
Yeah.
Excellent. Were you in the continent with the Royal Scots and the Black Watch?
Yes, I was in the ranks of the...
Yeah, but where were you?
I was...
geographically?
Well, the Royal Scots, the battalion that I joined was called the Young Soldiers Battalion. We were all under 20. And we were recruited off the streets. And I reported on the Wednesday morning and got a rifle and bayonet and that sort of thing, and 50 rounds of ammunition. On the Thursday we were shown how to load our rifles, and on the Friday 100 of us, all youngsters in new uniforms, were taken to Donaldson's Hospital at Edinburgh, which at that time was used as a prisoner of war camp for German officers. And there we were drawn up in 2 long lines facing inwards, shown how to fix our bayonets. And then the doors of Donaldson's Hospital were thrown open, and up came the Germans, and they were immaculate. Polished boots, uniforms with gold braid and all that sort of thing, carrying suitcases. And when they saw us, they stopped and they laughed their heads off. Here were this crowd of wee boys going to take them. However, most of the company came from Dundee. And I learned a lot from the Dundee boys about life. And when we got to Liverpool, all the gold braid had been taken off the hats and everything. Watches had gone. The Germans were furious.
Aye.
Well, a little Dundee chap from the Lochie Road with a bayonet.
Aye.
No one was going to argue. However, they went on a ship, I think it was called the Alcantara Star, and it was torpedoed in the middle of the Atlantic by a U-boat.
For goodness sake.
And
that was the end of them.
That was them. And it was also the end
Were
of
they supposed to be going to Canada?
Yes, they were supposed to be going to Canada at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So that was the introduction to soldiering.
It's a good job you waved them bye-bye on the shore there. So where did you go after that?
Well, we stayed in Edinburgh a bit, doing basic training, very rough and ready basic training.
Yeah.
And we used to march around the King's Park and that sort of thing. And I used to play the pipes at the head. I was a lance corporal at the same time with a section of men to look after, but it didn't matter. Then we were dispersed to airfields around the time of the Battle of Britain. My platoon went to Drem, outside Edinburgh, and we were there seeing the fighters taking off and that sort of thing. And then at night, when it was dark, we went and occupied a series of little posts. We were given a Lewis gun, and our job was to shoot down the hedgehoppers, the low-flying plane, but how they were going to fly in the dark, nobody ever said. But we had to go and do this. So that's what we did. And then, after a while, I was transferred to the Black Watch, which was the proper army. First class. First class.
Yes.
No frills, no what the goose call bullshit. You had to be clean, but nobody bothered you about details and that sort of thing. And the instruction went on up to the
Hammered into you, yes.
Hammered into us. And it was first class.
So where were you trained then?
I was trained at the Queen's Barracks, Perth.
Okay. And did you go abroad from Perth?
No, I went off to be a cadet, and then I was commissioned in the Camerons. And I went up to Cameron Barracks, where I'd been a little boy.
Yes.
And there were quite a few of the old hands could remember my father. And when I was a young officer, I went along to a sergeant's mess dance. We were all invited over. And as a cadet, I've been told, so now you must always be nice to us. So when you return a salute, say good morning, and that sort of thing. And an old sergeant came up to me with the First of all ribbons and said, I hear you're Jimmy Murray's boy. And I said, yes, yeah. He said, I see you going around the barracks saying, good morning, good morning, good morning. Your father would have said, come here, boy, stand to attention. So I took that.
Absolutely.
So that straightened me up a bit.
Did you play pipes at all at that point?
I didn't until there was an officer's mess guest night, and we had the military band in the room next door, and then after them the pipers came on, and then the older chaps were getting a bit merry, and one of them had been an old friend of my father's and said, young Murray there plays the pipes. Oh, you play the pipes to us? Go play the pipes to us, you see. So I went and got the pipe major's pipes. Now he had played the Pibroch round the table. He had played the wee spree, and he'd play the ground and a variation and a doubling and then the ground again, and he got out. So being young and silly and not thinking, I played the Highland Wedding, Athol Commerce, and 8 parts of Pretty Marion. Finished up with the Cameron men. And I went out, and there was old Willie Young, the pipe major, ashen-faced. And he said, I can play a lot better than that, you know. They don't like a long pibroch here, so I cut it short.
Aye, aye.
So I've been a lot better than his pibroch, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so after then I used to go along to the Piper's barrack room and have a tune and a talk and that sort of thing. And,
Good, excellent.
And at that time, the attitude was, oh, you did your own job. Playing the pipes was the piper's job.
Yes.
And your job was commanding a platoon or something. In the first battalion, it was very much the thing. But
Yeah.
I used to be allowed to spell the piper on route marches and things.
Good. Keep the hand in.
Keep the hand in, yeah.
So when did you go abroad then?
We went abroad on the 11th of April 1942. We went, the whole division, that's nearly 15,000 men, went in one convoy. We didn't know where we were going. It was a great sight to see the convoy going down the Mersey, with all the ships, the troops crowding the decks and cheering their heads off, and we had the pipes playing, the Royal Scots had the pipes playing, the English regiments had their drums, and it was like a scene from an old film, you know.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then we sailed, and we were at sea for 10 weeks. We went over to the West Indies. We went down south. We got warm, we were changed into our tropical uniforms, then it got cold again and we changed back. And then we came into Durban eventually. We went into Cape Town. And we were all getting poshed up, ready for a night on the town. We were ashore in 15 minutes in full marching order. And we were taken by train to a camp 15 miles outside Cape Town. And then we did 3 days exercises, marching, field firing and that sort of thing, and then back on the ship and away. I think we had one night ashore in Cape Town.
So where did the convoy end up?
We ended up in India. Because at that time the Japanese had just chased us out of Burma. And the division before us, the British division, had gone to Singapore and been captured. The 18th Division was captured in Singapore. Excuse me. And we went to India. And there we stayed for 2 years. Again, we were to be the spearhead of the seaborne invasion of Burma, because Field Marshal Wavell, who was the commander-in-chief at the time, was determined not to go into the jungle to beat the Japanese. He was going to do it from the sea. So there we stayed for 2 years, training for assault landings from ships. But again, the best laid plans. Wingate had gone into Burma in 1943 with his independent columns supplied by air. And the Japanese thought, well, if they can do to us that we can do it to them, only better.
Yeah.
So they invaded India in great strength. And where Wingate had had columns of 300 men, they came with columns of 5,000. 2 divisions went down to the south of Imphal, and 1 division came to a place called Kohima, on the border between India and Burma. And they laid siege to Kohima, which was defended by a battalion of the Royal West Kent Regiment and various odds and sods. I don't know if you read the Piping Times?
Yes, I do.
The story about Captain John Thompson.
I missed that one.
Was it Thompson? It's just a by-the-way story, but that's where it happened.
And there was a tune after
The
that.
tune named after him, yes, years after him.
Yeah.
he put up a very brave stand alone. We very nearly lost that battle. If the Japanese had been a bit more flexible, they could have had us on the ropes. However, we were there in the nick of time, as they say, and our battalion was lucky enough to be in the advance, leading the advance back to Kohima. It's a long story, but it was a big, the Japanese called it that long bitter battle, and it lasted for 3 months. The Japanese had only brought what they could carry on their backs.
Yes.
They ran out of ammunition, they ran out of food, and then they were forced to withdraw. They lost thousands of men.
Didn't have supply lines or anything like that?
No.
Nothing at all?
They were going to take it from us like they had in Malaya and in
Yes.
Singapore. They captured the British dumps.
Yes, aye.
And they very nearly did. But thank goodness they didn't.
They failed on that occasion.
For the British soldier, it was a terrible place. I suppose in the 2 years we were there, or the 3 years and 10 months we were there, I shouldn't think the average soldier spoke to one white woman. There was nothing laid on for them at all. There was no social setup, no dance halls, no cinemas, no anything.
So it was just a grind for 2 years.
Just a grind for them. They hated it.
And the food wouldn't be...
No, it was as good as could be done.
Yeah. You survived anyway.
Survived, yes.
And when did you leave India then?
We left, the battalion came home in late 45, and I came home in 46 and went back again. Because the battalion went to Japan as part of the British occupation force.
Were you in Japan?
Yes, we were in Japan for a year. And the Japs were completely docile. There was
no trouble there
no
at all?
No trouble at all, no.
But quite devastated the country though.
Oh, the country was flat, yes.
Yeah.
We went to Hiroshima and saw that.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese interpreter said, many bombs did that, one bomb did that. What's the difference? But the whole country was flat.
Even Tokyo and everything.
Oh, yeah,
I've read about it. And,
fearful firestorm in Tokyo.
Yes.
Because the houses were made of bamboo and wood and that sort of
Yes.
thing.
So, and what was the nature of your duties in Japan then?
We were just maintaining a presence. The American Army, the United States Army, had taken over Japan and were not to be too fine, but they'd given up soldiering.
Aye, okay.
And because we were going to show them up, we were shipped off to the little island of Shikoku, and the smallest island, where we carried on as if we'd been in Aldershot or Redford Barracks. We carried on doing the same things. It was the old army in those days. It was lights out at 10 last post at 10 o'clock, lights out at 10:15. Grown men going to bed at 10:15.
Yeah.
Reveille was at 6 in the morning. The pipes, the bugle, 3 drill parades a week. We weren't a regiment that mucked about. We got on with things. And,
yeah. I suppose that, yeah, it's the only way to keep order, really, and
Yes.
at the end of the day, yes.
Yes.
So you survived a year there,
Yes.
wouldn't be a lot of piping there either.
Well, the band used to play.
Huh?
I played, all the officers, I think we had 5 officers that played the pipes.
Oh,
And
well, that
when
passed
there
the
was a
time.
big retreat on, we were playing the band.
Good.
And you'd hear, we had lots of Japanese, wherever was working for us, and you hear them going about their business whistling Korohile and that sort of thing. We picked up the tunes.
So, that was Japan,
Yeah.
and you come back from there, and did you take up your piping again seriously? Or
Well, I didn't
what
really
happened?
touch pipes for 10 years during the war. It wasn't until we came back in 1952 that I really started again.
So you're that'd be quite a length of time away from.
Oh yes, that was quite
from this country.
But I'd been well taught,
Yes,
and I knew how to practice,
yes,
which is the big thing.
yeah.
And I'd kept up the Pipers'Persuasion and that sort of thing.
When did you take up with the Pipers'Persuasion Society and the Northern Meeting? Was that quite a while later again? Or was
Well, in 1953 we went to Austria, and we were in a place called Spital in the south of Austria, and just over the border in what was then excuse me, Italy, was the British garrison in Trieste. And in the garrison in Trieste was a police force, a civilian police force, and one of the divisions was commanded by Archie McNabb.
Right. Yep.
Glasgow Police.
Yes, that's correct.
And he had also been in the cannons during the war, so he came. He came to judge our piping competition. And he and I got together and played, and played for a whole weekend practically. And that was that. And then Archie had to contribute something to the Piping Times. And he wrote a little article about our piping competition. And then he mentioned myself in glowing terms, both as a player of Pipers'Persuasion and as a small music. And but he said, who's this chap? Anyway, out of the blue, I got an invitation to join the Pipers'Persuasion Society.
Right.
Which I did. And then I went back to Edinburgh. I lived in Edinburgh. I got a job in Stirling, so I could commute to Edinburgh. And I went back to the Royal Scottish Pipers'Persuasion Society.
What rank had you achieved by that time?
A major.
Major at that time.
Yeah.
And so you're a major, Pipers'Persuasion Society. What I understand that you became president of the Pipers'Persuasion Society at one point.
At one point, yes.
Yes, aye. Was how much later was that?
That was in the early 80s.
Okay, right. But you were still active, of course, say all the 50s, 60s, 70s in the Pipers'Persuasion Society.
Yes. Well, I was.
Could you explain to the people watching this what the Pipers'Persuasion Society does, why it is in nature a society, etc.? Just a brief paragraph, if you like.
This book
Yes.
is my Bible. The whole story of the Pipers'Persuasion Society is in here.
Yes, okay.
And the
And
ramifications.
the name of the book is?
The Highland Pipe and Scottish Society, 1750 to 1950. It's by Dr. Willie Donaldson, a very good writer. It should be an authority.
Uh-huh.
All his statements are verified, the
Yeah.
sources are given, it's beautifully put together, beautifully written. The music is, there are examples of music from all the old books. And it adds up to a case against the way the People Society has gone.
Uh-huh. It was originally envisaged as collecting papers together, the manuscripts.
Yes, but they had a false start,
Uh-huh.
and then it fell into the hand of a certain clique
Uh-huh.
who took it over
Uh-huh.
and made and edited all the books.
Uh-huh.
Came out. They were all lawyers,
Yeah.
and you could know how lawyers like to have things quite clear by precedent. They decided the line they wanted to follow,
Okay.
and they have done so.
Uh-huh.
And their line is now followed
Religiously.
Religiously
Yeah.
is the word.
Yes.
I'm not one of the disciples,
Uh-huh. Okay.
but it's gone down a certain way.
What way should it have gone,
Well,
in your view?
I was taught 75 years ago,
Ah.
and I was taught by a couple of the great men, Robert Reid and Willie Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taught a certain way. I was taught in a certain approach, which wasn't the same as
The People
the
Society.
People Society.
Okay.
Now, if you take the movement known as Hiharin, I was taught to play it like this. The A as a minimum,
Uh-huh.
and the E as a cadence note, not
Okay.
counting against the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking for a tune that'll make my point, but as usual I haven't got my reading glasses. Yes, here we are, the Battle of the Parser Creek.
Right.
There, that's how it starts.
Right.
Now this volume was edited by John Peter Grant of Rothiemachus, the sheriff of piping folklore, and that's the way I was taught to play the movement.
Okay.
When this came up, there was a great outcry about the way this was written, but this was the way it was played, and that's the way I was taught to play it by Robert Reid.
It's a
And,
short E
a
cadence.
short E cadence.
Uh-huh.
Now, when the great man who followed Rothiemachus as editor, he took it. I'll have to look at this. I thought I got this all organised, but I don't think I have. Anyway,
And did they change it and make the E longer, like
he made the
like
E
a quaver or
crotchet
something?
and the A crotchet. E crotchet, A crotchet. So instead of taking the time from the A,
Uh-huh.
he gave the E and the A equal value, and that is the way that has become the modern way of playing. It's the modern way, that is the only way you'll hear it played on the competition platform. The result is that the way of playing Peterborough has been changed.
Okay.
The way that the Peterborough Society says it should be played, but I don't
It's funny, I spoke to Alan MacDonald
Yes.
off and on, and in fact I'm redoing his interview. We weren't too happy with it mutually,
Yes.
and I'm seeing him in a fortnight's time to sit down and have a similar conversation
Yes.
with him on the subject of Peterborough. And it's interesting you should, because that'd be quite a nice wee lead in, if you like.
Yes, yes.
Because I know that tune, Battle of Passive Creef.
Yes.
But I was badly taught the tune.
Yeah.
And I've never played it in public because I've never been confident about it.
Exactly, yes.
I know that if you play that E long, you're taking the rhythm right out of the whole thing.
Yes, yeah.
And it should all be in the bottom hand rather than the top.
On the bottom hand.
Yeah.
If you look at the variations, they all start with the A.
Yeah. Yes.
There's no authority in tradition for playing it the way the Peter Society write it.
And it's a nice tune, you know, if you get
yes,
get it going.
Yes, the same with tune like Mary MacLeod. Robert Reid went straight to the from the E, a short E, long A.
Yes.
And a different tune entirely. So this he, haw,
Aye. You must all have the one dominant note. Really.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Alan will have more to say on it. On
Yes.
the subject.
Aye.
He
That's
and
good.
I see eye to eye.
Aye. And there seem to be several different ways of playing that lament for Mary MacLeod.
Oh yeah.
How does that come about?
Well, it's a popular tune, and popular tunes get played a lot, and people put their own, or used to put their own
Interpretations, yeah.
No.
But you have the Colberry version, and then as soon as a version there in Beaver's Society somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you'll have another Binnius's Borrig.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
A third sort of view on it, the same tune. And then you say other folk put their spin on it over and above.
Yes.
Aye. But aye, good. So that the Paver Society. Now, what you've told me is, if I understand it correctly, you were slightly at odds. Maybe that's too strong with their interpretation. Yet, in the 80s, you became president of the same Paver Society.
Yes.
So what did you do about it?
It's a long story, and I'm not going to.
No, okay, right. I was just maybe a highlight on it, you know.
There were other factors.
Okay.
All I could say was if I had stayed president,
Yes.
I don't think they would be thinking the way they are now.
Yes. Okay.
I had summed things up. I could pick holes in what was the Holy Scripture to them.
Yeah. How many people were dominant in the Paver Society around about that period? I know it's different. They've opened it up, the membership. It's much greater now. It's a much wider membership now, as I understand. But was it quite a tight company at that time?
Oh, yes, it was. When I joined it, it was a very tight company. As I was told, it was a society for gentlemen.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't know anything about that because I'm not a gentleman. Convener Northern Meeting. Tell me something about that.
Well, when I came back here in the 70s, there had been a bit of an upset in the Northern Meeting. They had changed. They had announced an order of merit, and somebody pointed out that there had been a mistake. They had changed it, and it caused a bit of a upheaval. It was very much a senior, older men were running it, judging and that sort of thing. So they decided that the time had come, so the then convener of the piping committee, Frank Richardson, he resigned and I was asked to take it on, so I did.
And another meeting, again, for people watching the other side of the world, is one of the two most prestigious solo piping competitions held in Scotland, and that is in Inverness, normally the beginning of September, a week or so or a fortnight after the Argyllshire gathering at Oban. So it's very prestigious, both prestigious competitions, and everybody vies for the gold medal, and then they hope to progress through to clasps and stuff like that after that. So you had a multitude of competitions to run on the Northern Meeting. It's not just one competition, there's several running all simultaneously. Yeah. So the silver medal, gold medal.
The silver medal wasn't started when I
Okay.
when I started with the Northern Meeting. It had been in the old Northern Meeting rooms where the ball was held, but they had been sold, and so we had no permanent home. So we used the Caledonian Hotel ballroom and 2 or 3 small church halls. One of them was the Dr. Black Church Hall. The Dr. Black Church was a Free Presbyterian church. And we had, I think, the gold medal or something there. And by that time we were looking for sponsors for the major events, and the sponsors wanted a bit of publicity, so on the platform for the Dr. Black Hall we put an advertisement for whisky. I won't say which whisky.
Oh, God, tell us, what whisky was it?
I think it was Glenfiddich.
Oh, okay.
I think it was Glenfiddich, yeah.
Nothing the matter with that.
That was the end of the Dr. Black Hall.
Was it?
Oh yes, indeed.
Oh, because of the Presbyterian thing.
Oh, because of the whisky advert. Yeah, oh yeah. Wouldn't have the church hall used to.
Good.
So you know the devil.
Aye.
So we had to look for other premises. Luckily, at that time, Eden Court was just coming ready. So we had a look at it. I think Malcolm McRae was the first chap to play in the Eden Court, and everyone decided it would be just the thing. So we moved the whole thing, lock and stock and barrel, over to the Eden Court, and no more trouble with the church halls and whisky. That's the thing.
There we go.
Then we were confronted with the numbers of competitors. When I had judged in the 50s, there would be 7 for the class, 8, 5, and
okay.
now there are 20, 30. For the gold medal, it would start at 9 in the morning and still be going at 11 o'clock at night. Well, no one can concentrate for that.
No
time, so we had to do something. So we sent a notice round the Oban Times, Piping Down, that sort of thing, saying we were going to deal with this and could we have suggestions. And suggestions came in. We decided to impose our own solution,
Okay.
which was we would select 30 pipers to play for the gold medal.
Yes.
So that's what we did. You could imagine the
Aye.
why him and not me, and why me, why his pupil and why not mine.
So it has continued.
So we brazened it out.
Yes.
And then the time thing came up, and it was in my time that the lights were instituted. We were the first people to have the lights.
So can you explain the lights for the people?
Well, there was a limit on the tuning time. Can take up the whole day if you let it. So we, for the gold medal, the limit was I think 5 minutes, and the light was green. So a chap winding lights, and he showed the green for 5 minutes. Then it went amber. 5 minutes was up, and then I think a couple of minutes after it went red. This was fine to start with, and then the boys discovered that if they turned their backs to the light and fiddled away,
Aye.
I never saw it.
Okay, right.
So, so there came a day when a very well-known competitor.
It was Alistair Gillis.
Yes.
I think everybody knows it
Yes.
anyway, you know.
Yes,
Aye.
well, you know.
So who was on the bench then?
There were 3 of us.
Okay.
Old Willie MacDonald, who just died, Ian McFadden, and myself, all wearing Cameron ties, and but of course, guess who gets the blame?
Aye. But who went up and tapped him on the shoulder or whatever?
Well, I was told, I was up at the Northern meeting, and I was told that the family have arranged a display of Alistair's medals and trophies.
Yes.
And in the middle is a red light bulb. He took it like a soldier. He took it extremely well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. But he was very, very, very successful, Alistair, wasn't he? Over all the years. He won everything many times over.
Yes, yes.
Did they not hold some sort of record at the Northern meeting?
Oh yes, for the former winners March to Spain Rail.
Yes.
I think of 10 times or
Yeah.
perhaps even more.
Yeah. And that'd be most difficult for anybody to match any time in the future.
Well,
who knows what?
I suppose someone will come up someday, but
Aye.
I don't.
But what was Alistair best at in your view? Was it Pembroke or was it light music?
He was his light music took some beating.
Yes.
And he was a thinking chap. I remember when I was with the BBC, he came on to do a broadcast, and he was going to play the Little Cascade. And it had developed to be played a certain way.
Right.
And I said, so the way Robert Reid played it was so he said, right, I'll play up, right up. And he played it the way I
Diddled it to him, yeah.
diddled just off the top of his head. Right then. And when I met him later on, he said, they keep asking me where I got that setting of the Little Cascade, and I said it was the way the composer played it. And it was too.
Did that, yeah. G.S. McClellan?
Yes, G.S. McClellan. And I used to tell the story that there was a dripping tap. And
Yes.
if you listen, you hear the back brace note, it drips, makes just the dripping. That's the sort of artist he was. But nowadays it's no good saying that because nobody's heard a dripping tap. All the taps are plumbered and washed.
Yes, exactly. So there's no rhythmic drop.
There's nothing to.
Yeah.
It's the same with the jig of flowers, which is supposed to be a train going over the. But the trains, all the rails are continuous now.
Yeah,
so
don't have points.
Yes.
Or whatever.
So it's no good. Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was Alistair, but you'd a lot more interaction, I think, with the likes of Ian McFadden and John McDougall earlier than that. And tell us something about the terrible twosome, McFadden and McDougall. What rank were you when you dealt with them?
I was a major.
Right.
And they were pipers.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ian got a lance stripe. I think he did, yes.
Yeah.
Because he was a good footballer too.
Aye. Yeah.
You can't do that.
I was watching Ian's interview just the other night there. It was very good, yes.
Yeah.
Aye.
They were good men. They were good soldiers.
Uh-huh.
They were first-class players.
Uh-huh.
And the five we had playing in the mess was Evan McRae, the pipe major, with the gold medalist, Ian McFadden, John McDowell, William MacDonald,
Uh-huh.
Beckula,
Yeah.
and Andrew McKillop,
Mhm.
South Uist. And they could...
It'd be a fabulous night's entertainment there.
They used to come in to the mess and stride round.
There's a wee story doing the rounds a while back about yourself and McFadden. You confined him to barracks or something instead of his night out. What happened there?
There was a tradition in the Cameron Highlanders that we didn't play The Campbells Are Coming.
Okay.
So Ian was a well-known piper, and I always called him Ian. Nonsense. Anyway, I heard behind the block, da-da-dee, hin-da-da, hin-da-da-da. So there was a big Corporal, Joe Murray, played the bass drum, and I said, Corporal Murray, put that piper on the guard too, you see. So Joe was up for it straight away, so he ran over, and round the corner came Ian McFadden with his hat off, doubling. and Joe Murray was saying, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. He doubled Ian to the guard and clang, bang, knocked him up. So after a quarter of an hour or so, I had Ian met out. But he took it a good part, and I knew he would.
Yeah.
And it's one of his stock stories.
Aye, he finishes off the story with he was going in a night out and it's a wee bit late and he's hashing past your window, and all I could hear from the open window was the Campbells are coming, been whistled.
I've forgotten that. Yes.
That was a good one. Aye, that's excellent. So, you'd people like that in the regiment. Earlier on, Ian McFadden and ultimately Alistair Gillis. But what about Ian Morrison?
Ian Morrison was after my time.
Was he? Yeah.
I never served with Ian Morrison.
Okay. Who else have I missed then round about that time?
But, I think you've got the lot.
Yeah. So, what rank did you finish in the army?
When I was a lieutenant colonel, that's all.
Yeah. And okay. Yeah. And ultimately, what regiment was it when you finished up?
It was in the Queen's Own Highlanders. It was amalgamated with the Seaforth.
Yes.
But I was lucky enough to get command of the 4th, 5th Camerons at that time, who were the TA battalion in Monash, which was the best 2.5 years I ever had. And they were a great lot. They had some very good pipers on the island, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
When did you start judging?
Well, when the 1955 Royal Scottish Pipers competition was where I was lucky enough to you could call it sweep the board. And at that time the amateurs didn't take themselves very seriously. In fact, one of them was heard to remark, excuse the language, that Bunda Murray plays like a bloody professional. Which wasn't done at that time. Now it's changed completely.
Yes.
There are excellent amateur players.
Yes.
I mean, at that time, serving in the army, I couldn't compete. I couldn't play
No.
for money against serving pipe majors.
Yes. You being an officer.
Well, yeah, well, yes.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the Royal Scottish Pipers'Persuasion Society.
Yes.
You better tell us about that. What was that?
Well,
If you're watching in Germany, you're scratching your head and wondering what's the Royal Scottish Pipers'Persuasion Society, and
Yes.
you're getting a wee bit confused between that and the Royal Scottish Pipe Band Association.
Yes, yes. The Royal Scottish Pipers'Persuasion Society was formed in 1882 for the encouragement of piping among gentlemen.
Okay.
Now, at that time, pipers were pretty low down the scale.
Aye.
The old trouble.
Uskave.
Uskave, yes, Uskave. And they were the tinker, and that sort of thing. So for the gentleman to play the pipes was quite something, quite a bold step. However, they got going. I think there were mainly lawyers and doctors, the odd army officer, and they met and they played. And
Whereabouts in Edinburgh?
in Edinburgh, yes.
Yeah.
It's somewhere, I can't remember where in Edinburgh. I've got the book somewhere. And they had a uniform.
Maybe Haymarket.
Pardon?
It might be
Might
Haymarket.
be, yes, yes.
But I stand to be corrected there because I'm a Glasgow chap and I don't know very much about Old Ricky.
Oh, really? Oh.
Except every time I step there I've got to put a tie on. Anyway, sorry I interrupted the society.
They went on and they grew in numbers and they grew in influence. They ran a very good Highland ball, at which the band played. Yes, you could say they played. They didn't sort of play the pipes as play at the pipes. But people made a certain amount of reputation, and there was a certain amount of serious study went on. Nothing like goes on now.
No.
But they fiddle around with the edges. But it was very much a sort of come as you please. I think we met every second Friday in one of the drill halls in Edinburgh, and there'd be a tune, and then there'd be a dram, and then there'd be a tune, and then there'd be a dram, then there'd be a tune and a dram, and then another dram, and another dram, and a tune, and another dram, and another dram.
Aye.
And it generally tailed off.
Aye. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
What pipes did you play then?
I played, I had a set that I'd got from Willie Ross. He said they were Henderson.
Okay.
But they said they went all right. They were fine, yeah.
Henderson's had a good reputation at that time. And I go back and repeat about the judging thing. So that was your platform for commencing your career in judging, which went on for quite a few decades.
Well, Archie McNabb had written what he did, and Sheriff Grant of Rothimarcus heard me play and said McNabb wasn't exaggerating. And he took me under his wing.
Right.
I was very, very fortunate. And he took me to South Uist to judge. which was, as far as the sheriff was concerned, was the place for piping.
Because it was a big competition in these days.
Yes, it was.
They went round all the islands, didn't they? Well, South Uist was one of the big competitions.
Yes, there was quite a contingent used to come up from the south, and on the boat going over,
Yeah.
there'd be piping, and John McLean Lewis, John Burgess, all these chaps, and then there would be the games day, and at 10 o'clock in the morning when the games were to start, on the field there would be the judges, and perhaps a couple of stewards. Nobody else.
Until about
Yes. As the day wore on, so
people turned up.
appeared.
Yeah. Right.
And it was, there was good playing, and it was a good, tremendous atmosphere. Mark you, the rain could be coming in horizontally from America.
Yeah.
They still went on with it.
And there was the flat marker that you played on, and it was
On the
just
marker, yes,
yeah, absolutely no hiding place at all.
None at all, none at all.
I've been there. Aye.
And then the last competition would be the local jigs.
Yeah.
And up they would come in their sea boots and their ganses and their dungarees, one set of pipes, and they pass.
Yeah. Aye.
One set of pipes.
That's
and
right.
And they could all play.
Yes.
They could all play. One of the great experiences I had was listening to John MacDonald, the Glasgow Police, playing for the dancing.
Okay.
And in between the dances he just played music, pouring out the whole time, rain lashing down. They were men of iron.
Willie Morrison told me his father had built him a very small sort of runway of wood, and they had to practice outside the house and the snow and everything, and just marching up and down this plank of wood as if it was a platform, and counter marching back and forward. Other folk doubted the veracity of that, but that's Willie's story anyway, you know.
Yeah, well, they were weatherproof, these chaps. They had to be.
Yeah.
And there used to be a ceilidh after the games, and I played down, and I used to play small tunes at the ceilidh for the people. And I was back in the hotel, and there appeared John MacDonald and Ruddy, and they said, "Now that tune you played, this is how it should go." So they diddled it to me until I got it off.
Okay.
It's called The Pretty Apron, and Tappenbach.
Right.
And the Pretty Apron, Angus MacDonald told me the Pretty Apron was the kilt.
Yes.
And when they'd finished, and I could play it on the counter, John hit me in the shoulder and said, "Now that's Highland music for you, boy."
Great.
And what an experience that was.
Did you have much of an experience these early years with the City of Glasgow Police Pipe Band?
I used to bump into them. Angus MacDonald had been in the 5th Camerons during the war.
Right.
And of course that's a tremendous bond, being in the same regiment.
Yes.
And also Angus MacDonald, Scots Guards, his father, the diddler.
Yes, that's right. His father was in the police band as well.
Police band, yes.
Yeah.
Then there was John Garraway, and I forget a lot of the names now.
White and various others.
And of course that was the era of the great stories.
Absolutely.
Coming back.
Angus MacDonald, he eventually became Pipe Major of the City of Glasgow Police. I think it was 58 or something like that, through to 67, when he was promoted Chief Inspector and handed over to Ronnie Laurie.
Ronnie Laurie, yes.
At that point. You mentioned Angus MacDonald Guards. What was your experience of Angus?
Well, I used to be in charge of the mass pipe band of the Edinburgh Tattoo in about 1956 or something.
Mm-hmm.
We'd all tuned up. They hadn't tuned up. That was not done at the Tattoo. They just went on, but I made them all tune up.
Uh-huh.
After the tuning up, I heard from the basement of the officers' mess this high-grade piping coming up.
Uh-huh.
So I went over and I saw this fair-haired lad doing something with a reed, and I called down, "What's your name, sonny?" Because that was the way the old paternal relationship there was.
Uh-huh.
And he sprang to attention and said, "Boy MacDonald, 1st Battalion, Scots Guards."
Aye.
And that's, I got to know him as time went on. We went on, kept on meeting and that sort of thing. And
Great player.
Great player, great player.
Mm-hmm.
And then we became friends.
Uh-huh.
Meeting him at the BBC when he was giving recitals and things like that.
Yeah. And he made a tune after you?
Yes.
The reel?
John Allen made the tune. It's a march.
Okay.
It's a march. It's
Right. Originally, it was composed as a march,
yes.
and Angus
rearranged it as
a reel.
And I believe it still gets played.
Yes, it's a lovely tune. It's not one of mine, but it's a beautiful tune, yes. It's still played all the time.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
It's a great tune. Angus made a lovely job. How did it sound as a march? Was it a good march?
They sprung it on me
Uh-huh.
at the Tattoo. The last night of the Tattoo, they played it as they marched off.
Ah.
They plot to get me on the microphone.
What year was that now?
That would be about 1978.
So you're still knocking about there at that point.
Still knocking about there.
You told me earlier at one point that you were the first military tattoo 1940...
48.
48.
Yeah.
And were you tasked with the piping end of the tattoo at that point?
It was called the military display in those days. And it happened one night on the Esplanade, and the other night down on the bandstand at Princess Street Gardens.
Okay.
And the Royal Scots did it one night and we did it the other.
Uh-huh.
The lighting was lorries parked around the Esplanade with their headlights on.
Uh-huh.
It was, in those days it was just after the war, a certain amount of light-hearted feeling about. And there was a platform for the dancers, and I remember one night the Royal Scots dancer danced right off the platform.
Nothing to do with the whiskey, of course.
No, nothing to do with whiskey. And then the opening fanfare was sounded by the trumpeters of some Hussar regiment. And I think there were 2 shows. Oh, that was it. I think that was the first tattoo I was on in 52, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And on the nights when there were 2 performances, as there were on Friday and Saturday, I think, the first performance was fine, and then the second performance became hats on.
Slightly deteriorated,
yes, yes. Trumpeters at all angles, suddenly everything. But you see, they were paid so little in those days that finding them was nothing at all.
Aye.
I mean, if you're going to find a pound for having a bit of a laugh.
And you couldn't lock them up because you needed them to play the next night anyway.
That's right. Yes,
yes. So that was a tattoo, and of course it's going on from strength to strength. And I spoke to Stuart Sampson just in the last interview, and Stuart had certain levels as well, and I think he enjoyed the tattoo, organising the piping for it.
Yeah, yes.
He does it for Berlin and Bâle now in Switzerland.
Oh yes.
So,
They were.
when did you start doing the BBC programmes?
I did that. Started it there in about the early 80s, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was known as.
It was called The Noble Instrument. Was
the title of the
program we did twice every couple of months.
Aye.
That was on a sort of magazine program.
Yes.
It was called there was pipes and drums and music of the pipes, something like that.
Yes. It went on to become Pipeline eventually.
Yes, Pipeline eventually. Yes. Ian McInnes. Yeah.
And did Seamus McNeill have it before you?
Yes.
Did you just do the intermittent programmes, the magazine programme, if you like, and was he completely finished by the time that you had commenced? I'm only talking about times here, I'm not talking personalities.
No, he had finished by the time I
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So how long's the programme? 30 minutes?
It was 30 minutes, yes. 30
and you had some piping, and what else did you have?
Well, the music for the pipes was that.
Yeah.
There was just the announcing of the tunes, a bit about the tunes, perhaps a bit about the piper. But the Noble Instrument was interviews and
yeah.
And that sort of
I remember one memorable programme for me that you did, and I think it was Fred Morrison, young Fred, as it was then.
Yeah.
The popular Fred Morrison of the real pipes and all the other pipes now. But he played some lovely tunes for you that night. I forget the name of the Pembroke he played, but it was one he'd won the gold medal with. Yeah. Did you get on with John McFadden?
Oh, very well.
John did some of the broadcasting as well, didn't he? At one point.
Yes.
I think he was sort of doing broadcasting back and forward at that time.
Yeah.
It was some very, very good programmes.
Oh, yes.
I was trying to remember the Pembroke that Fred had played in your program.
Ellis Seaforth.
Yeah, it was Ellis Seaforth. Yeah. I made a lovely job.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So,
come on, gentlemen. Are you going to have tea or not?
Oh,
With a piece of cake?
Nah, we'll have a wee. We were discussing, I think, John McFadden a minute ago.
Yes.
And so, what was your experience with John? He did the programmes, but did you ever judge with John, or did you judge John playing, or what was
John,
it?
Yes.
Did you? Were you on the bench when he played, or anything like that?
I was in Skye once, and staying at Viewfield with old Jock MacDonald. And Jock MacDonald says, "Come on, we're going to see John McFadden. He's at Borv, and it's Gloucester Borv." So we went along to Borv, and
He built a house there, didn't he?
he built a house there. Yes.
Aye.
And so I played for about half an hour. I put the pipes down. Silence, and John said, "Any chance of you competing, David?" And I said, "No." He said, "Thank God for that." I mean, that sounds like boasting, but that's what he did say.
That's good.
Yeah. I like John.
Yes.
I like John. And I never dreamt that he would go the way he did.
Yeah. But a tremendous all-round player, and he brought out a beautiful book of music too.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Which I still play tunes out of to this day, and lovely settings.
Yes.
Thompson Dirk comes to mind.
Council Dirk, yeah.
Lovely setting of that, and various other good marches in there. South Hall, Hugh Alexander Love Tyree.
Yes, and there's Tag and Gap, isn't there?
Yeah,
Johnny Mackenzie's tune.
Yeah. Aye. But a great player of the Pembroke as well.
Yeah.
Remember listening to John playing I Get a Kiss of the King's Hand and Tobermory, and I think that was one of his favourite tunes too. So
I got that from, I played it to Angus MacPherson, and Angus MacPherson took me aside and said, and sang it to me in Gaelic. Quite different. Hey hum-ba-da, hum-ba, hum-ba.
there's various ways of expressing that.
Oh yes, but of course they just hee-haw and hee-hum.
Yeah.
Hee-haw away on the platform. And
Yeah. How do you find, how did you find it? You told me just a second ago that you stopped judging 20 years ago, but was there a marked difference in the way Pipers'Persuasion were played latterly from the way that they were played earlier in your judging career?
yes, there was. It got flatter and more pedestrian and
Careful.
more careful. And you got the idea that the chap had the music in it, not the score in his head, and he was ploughing through it.
Did you get the impression that nobody had really taught them, just lifted it off the book sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, take Kilberry's book.
Yeah.
Crotchet. Kilberry of the Crotchets is what I call him, because every tune is just straight.
Yeah.
There's the 3/4 time it goes strong, weak, medium. And in 4/4 it goes strong, weak, or strong, weak, strong. Everybody knows that, but nobody plays it. I mean, you take a tune like Dougal's Gathering, he habadum ba dee da da la da 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 la da da, and you're supposed to sit there with your pencil, you're thinking. In fact, what you want to do is just score the get rid of the chap, but that's the way they play. And it's the same last.
Who was the greatest exponent of Mike Dougal's Gathering that you heard?
I would say Angus MacDonald.
Right.
Could make it go. Yeah.
Ronnie Laurie? Did you ever hear Ronnie
I
playing?
never heard Ronnie play it.
I heard him playing it once.
Yeah.
The Euston Barra one year.
Yeah.
And really set the place on fire, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. He was good. He was good.
Aye. He put real life into the whole thing, and it scudded along at some pace, you know. It was a tune. Yeah.
It needs to be good.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the music of the Scottish Regiments by David Murray, and the cover, if you like, is depicting the earliest known picture of a Highland piper. And what the drones again? Describe the drones.
He's got a bass drone,
and
this is the middle of the 18th century when there are different stories about when it was introduced, but this chap's got a bass drone, 2 tenor drones, just the same as the pipe we play today.
The modern pipe, yes.
The modern pipe, yeah. And he's there in a kilt and a belted plaid. So this is a Lowland regiment, an English regiment at the time. And there he is, 15 years after Culloden.
Yes.
How it started in the days when nobody had watches. So everything had to be done by signal.
Yes.
And the best way of signalling was by playing a tune that the troops could recognise, or beating on the drum, and the fife first of all, and then the pipes, and how the pipers played by themselves. There was no pipe band until the 1850s. Though there are stories of the pipers playing together at retreat time, which was sunset, or tattoo, which was about 9:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then how it, and for a long time the pipes existed side by side with the pipes, the flutes, and a lot of some of the flute music was taken over by the pipers. A Pint of Water, that's a flute tune, the Long River Valley, that's from the pipes too, and various other tunes. The corps of drums, the drums and pipes used to play, and then they'd hear the pipes playing it and say, "Where did you get that tune from?"
So it was just the borrowing music from one another, really.
Yeah.
Did the 2/4 march come in about that time? Or?
The two. Well, they didn't just play Piebroch, as Colberry says in his preface, which is rubbish, because they were all young men, and no one's going to go around playing the lament for normal man or coming when you're 18 to it, another bunch of 18-year-olds.
Aye.
They played tunes like the Lesser Richmond Hill. There are a lot of them. There are several tunes in Donald MacDonald's book, the Cock of the North, odds, and in the early collections there are the odd tunes they used to play. I can't remember any off the top of my head at the moment, but the light music was there the whole time, and for dancing and that sort of thing.
Yes, aye. But the Suspay music, and I'm going to ask Alan MacDonald about this as well. Suspay music, there are two different types of Suspay. There's the step dancing, which went across to Nova Scotia and etc. And it was the Suspay, the Paris Suspay, brought across from France, if you like, and adapted. But the Scottish Suspay is something totally peculiar to Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah.
Scottish music. They don't have anything like it elsewhere.
No, not in Ireland. They don't have it. I mean,
no.
The Irish regiments used to be forbidden to play Suspay.
Yeah, but an extremely difficult tune to play is Suspay.
Oh, it is, yes. Robert Reid used to time the Suspay according to the feet. Point, pointed it, you accentuate it according to the step that was being done.
Yeah.
And he could do it beautifully. But of course it wasn't popular on the competition platform. And when I started judging, there were still older judges who would hear somebody playing and say, Reid. Like that, you know. Old devils that couldn't.
So the competition's got a lot to answer for, really.
No, it's got a lot to answer for.
In terms of the changing of the music over.
Yes. It's certainly, as far as Pipers's concerned, it's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
I was privileged to talk to George Moss before he died. I saw quite a lot of him.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot. He had been taught to play the Donald MacDonald style of notation. Dear hum ba bum, dear hum da da, just as it's written in Donald MacDonald.
Yes.
Now they, one of the Campbell lawyers wrote a thing called the Elusive Appoggiatura or something like that. This was part of the propaganda drive to get Donald shoved in the background.
Aye.
But you could play Donald MacDonald's settings as written, with a bit of thought.
Yeah.
One of them's published in Book 6 of the Pipers'Persuasion Society collection, the revised Book 6, which in the days when we had a music committee that knew what they were doing, it was put in, and it was put in right at the back, and not included in the contents, because I mean that meant redoing the whole contents page, and that meant more expense, whereas there's a sheet of music with something different.
So you just put it in the back?
Yeah, we just put it in the back with its own notes. Hugh McCallum, John McClellan, and others were on the music committee at the time. It was set for the competitions one year, the Massacre of Glencoe. So I said, did anybody put in Donald MacDonald's setting? And the answer was, it's not been printed. I said, yes, it's in Book 6. No, it's not. I said, well, just turn over the last page.
My goodness.
Shock, horror.
Yeah.
High officials in the Pipers'Persuasion Society hadn't seen it.
Yeah. So they're...
Well, there was, just during the Battle of Kohima, there was an officer and 9 men went missing. Just went off the face of the earth. Never seen again. And our old doctor was with a hospital just further down the road. And when we were out at rest, people went down to and saw him and that sort of thing. And he knew all about what we've been doing. And somebody said, "How do you know? How did you know these things, Ian, Doctor?" And he said, "Oh, I met a chap in the hospital here. He had his batman with him, and he described the chap who'd gone missing, who was about 5'10", crew cut, big moustache. He described this chap double cross, and said, yeah, he told me all about it and that sort of thing. And then he said, well, we'd better be getting back now. So he put on his helmet and off they went, he said. And then it struck me, they were still dressed in their battle order with their rifles.
Amazing.
And they were never seen again. So as soon as we heard this, we had a search made of all the hospitals to see if this chap, the missing chap, had turned up somewhere. Never, not another word about him.
That's canny, eh? Aye. That's amazing. One last one for me is the 9/8, the Hills of Dargai.
Yes.
You've got a different name for it.
The Dagshire Hills.
Aye. So, what happened there?
Well, the Battle of Dargai was the great Gordon Highlanders battle. In 1898 it was. And they were all over the press, the Gordons at Dargai. And the Pipers had played, Fiddler had got the BC, and other Pipers had been decorated for playing Cock of the North as the troops stormed this hill. And a tune was composed called The Heights of Dargai by a chap called Wallace, Robert Wallace, who was an instructor at some training school ship on the Clyde. And the Scots Guards put out a book with the 9/8 in it. And Dagshire is about 1,000 miles east of Dargai.
Okay.
Yeah. And Dagshire was a station. It was again on the hills. And the Argylls played the 9/8 and called it the Dagshire Hills. And the Scots Guards, who had never been to India, of course they never did before the war, Dagside Dargai, what the hell's the difference? The height of Dargai.
So they mixed up the title in the wrong tune.
It's titled the wrong tune in the wrong book. And then, of course, there was this, I forget how it came up, but we found somebody in their Giles, that's right, sent me a copy of the Heights of Dargai.
Yes.
It was written by Wallace, who had been a piper in their Giles, and Ian McInnes broadcast it on the programme.
What was the time signature of that?
6/8.
6/8.
4-part 6/8.
Okay, so entirely different.
Entirely different tune.
Yeah.
Entirely different tune, but it had got the wrong name, thanks to the wooden tops.
What about the Phantom Piper of
Corrie Eric. Oh yes. Well, when I was a training officer at Cameron Barracks in the days of the National Service, we used to fiddle the curriculum, so we got plenty of time outdoors and plenty of exercise. And then the final exercise used to be walking over the Corrie Eric Pass, from Fort Augustus over the hill to Newton Moor. Well, we didn't go all the way to Newton Moor. We stopped at a place called Garvermore, which had been an old stopping place in the days when the Fort Augustus was occupied. The farm was still called Garvermore Barracks. Anyway, we set off this day, 3 pipers, Ian McFadden, Ian Smart, Jimmy Smart, ex-boy piper, a good player, and Ian Fraser from up Speyside somewhere. And we set off. It was at the end of March.
Okay.
And we got down, then we got to the climb. And halfway up the hill the wind got up. And it wasn't snowing, but the snow was being driven off the drifts. You couldn't see very far in front of it, so here was I with 80 national servicemen in the middle of the Highlands. Nobody knew where we were. Never mind, press on. So on we went. I had the taps holding on to the bayonet of the tap in front and that sort of thing. And I went up to the front of the column where the 3 pipers were. And Ian Fraser was a shepherd. He was bred to the hill. And I said, can you see the path, Ian? He said, no, I'm following the birds. And there were a pair of ptarmigan and their white plums walking along the path in front. Now, just before that, I'd gone to Aberdeen to judge a competition with the Sheriff Grant of Rothiemurthers. And I told him we were going to walk across the Corrie Eric. He said, I wonder if you'll see the Ghost Army. Because there's said to be a ghost army that goes over there. Montrose went that way to the Battle of Inverlochy. And it's said to be Montrose's army. And he said to me, if anyone sees them, David, it'll be you, a Highland soldier. And I thought, well, God, that's a compliment. So, anyway, Ian was following the birds, and visibility was none, the wind was whistling, and it was stinging our knees. Well, I always made them march in the kilt. But on we went, and when we got to the top of the pass, the birds flew off. And we got down the other side. The pipes were soaked through. We had 9 miles to march to Garvermore Barracks, where the colour sergeant was waiting with the hot meal and the tea and all the comforts. So we got there, and everything was ready. See? So I said, oh, well done. So, oh, they said, we heard the pipes. And I said, what? They said, we heard the pipes, we heard you coming down the glen, we heard the pipes. And I said, but we didn't know playing the pipes. Callison was an old piper, an ex-piper, had been 10 years in the pipe band, and said, "We heard the pipe, sir. You know me, I was a piper and all this sort of thing." And the boys said, the cooks all said, "Yes, we heard the pipe, sir." And it was getting dark. The wind was whistling down and howling. And I thought, let's get the hell out of here. So we got off our marks. And so we told the story when we got back. It got in the papers, and John McLennan wrote it, saw it, and came up with this as the name of his tune. I think it was the best people he ever wrote, John.
Yes.
And he wrote several.
There you are.
So that's the story of the Phantom Piper.
Okay. David, I could go on here. For another fortnight, but I think, in the interests of the full moon coming out very shortly, it's been a really very, very interesting afternoon, and thank you very much for your time here for Piper's Persuasion. No doubt I'll get it somewhere in the next few months or years. Why didn't you ask him that question? But I think we've covered lots of questions here this afternoon, and I don't know about the rest of the people, but I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, David, and thank you very much to your good lady for her hospitality.
Oh, not at all.